The movie opens in the 1970s, with a car slowly driving down a snow-covered road before stopping in front of a house. From her bedroom window, a young girl notices an unfamiliar car parked outside. Curious, she grabs her Polaroid camera and steps outside to investigate. She spots a cloaked figure sitting in the passenger seat, but before she can get a closer look, a voice calls out from behind the house. When she goes to check, she finds no one there, only to suddenly be confronted by a figure with a pale white face.
There she is, the almost birthday girl.
The scene transitions to the 1990s, inside a locked meeting room where FBI agent Lee Harker, who exhibits signs of possible clairvoyance, is attending a briefing about a murder suspect known to be armed and dangerous. Harker and her colleague are assigned to conduct door-to-door interviews in search of the serial killer. When they arrive in the neighborhood, Harker's partner takes the lead, knocking on doors while Harker stays behind. Trusting her intuition, Harker identifies a random house and insists that the suspect is inside. She suggests calling for backup, but her partner dismisses her intuition as a mere hunch on their first day of the assignment and chooses to investigate the house alone, with Harker quietly trailing him. As soon as the door opens, the suspect shoots Harker's partner dead, sending her into a panic. She manages to compose herself and cautiously enters the house, only to find the suspect sitting calmly on the bed, ready to surrender without resistance. In the next scene, Harker undergoes a series of psychological tests to evaluate her potential psychic abilities. Later, she is seen sitting in a car with her supervisor, William Carter, and Agent Browning. Carter, impressed by Harker's accurate predictions during the tests, believes her abilities could be crucial in solving a complex case. He briefs her on a 2-month-old familicide case, linking it to multiple others where all the victims share the same birth date. In each case, the father kills his family before taking his own life, leaving behind a letter signed Longlegs with satanic symbols. The handwriting doesn't match any family member, and no other trace of the killer is found at the crime scenes. Carter explains that 10 coded letters have been discovered, and 10 families have been murdered in this manner over the past 30 years. Agent Browning is hesitant to assign this unsettling case to Harker, given her rookie status, but Carter insists they have no other choice. As a result, Harker is tasked with investigating the ongoing case of Longlegs, the primary suspect in a series of brutal murder-suicides targeting families in Oregon. Her mission is to decipher the coded letters, which contain satanic symbols and cryptic messages. Following this, Carter takes Harker to his office and provides her with photos and documents about the victims' families. Harker asks what the families had in common, and Carter reveals that each one had a daughter born on the 14th of the month. Harker begins reviewing the case files and articles. She listens to an emergency call from the most recent case, where the father frantically claimed that his daughter was not actually his.
911, what's your emergency?
It's my daughter. But it's not my daughter.
During the call, it seems as though something took control of him, leading him to attack his family. This is accompanied by a series of graphic and disturbing visuals from the crime scene. Exhausted from her work, Harker eventually falls asleep on the floor. Later, Carter arrives and invites her for a drink. As they talk, Harker shares her findings. There was no forced entry into any of the homes, and only family members were present during the crimes. The victims were killed using items already in the house, such as registered shotguns, kitchen knives, and hammers. She speculates that Longlegs might have conditioned the fathers to commit these horrific acts. After a long first day, Harker drives Carter to his home and reluctantly meets his wife, Anna, and their daughter, Ruby. In Ruby's room, she invites Harker to her birthday party in a week's time, and Harker agrees to attend. It's late into the night when Harker returns to her remote house in the woods and calls her mother, Ruth. During their conversation, she expresses her stress about working on a disturbing case. Suddenly, a growling noise comes from the door, alarming Harker and causing her to end the call abruptly. She looks outside through the window and sees a shadowy figure in the distance. Grabbing her gun, she steps outside but finds no one there. Then she notices a figure inside her home, quickly returning to confront the intruder, only to find that the person is gone. Instead, she discovers an envelope with a note that reads, "Do not open until January 14th. Despite the warning, Harker opens the envelope and finds a birthday card from Longlegs, along with an encrypted note, which was freshly written. After some effort, she decodes the message, which contains a chilling threat. Revealing the source of the code will result in her mother's murder. The next morning, the FBI team arrives at a crime scene where another family has been murdered in the same manner. A letter from Longlegs is found at the scene. It appears the family was killed a month ago, but their bodies went undiscovered because they were about to leave for vacation. Additionally, the family's daughter's birthday falls on the 14th of the upcoming month. The team then moves to the master bedroom, where Browning informs Harker and Carter that the father's body was found in the garage with a self-inflicted throat wound. They also discover other family members' body, heavily decayed and emitting a foul odor, as it has been a month since the murder. The sight deeply unsettles Harker, and later she tells her mother, Ruth, that she is working on a disturbing case and will be very busy. Ruth hopes to see Harker for her birthday, which is next week. Following this, Harker restarts her investigation from scratch. She reads a book titled 9 Circles of Hell, which explains how Satanists use algorithms to mark significant dates. Later, she meets with Carter to present her findings. Harker reveals that each family had a 9-year-old daughter born on the 14th of the month, and the murders all occurred within 6 days before or after the birthday. Moreover, the dates of the murders form an inverted triangle symbol on a calendar, with one date missing. This suggests that Longlegs is planning another murder on January 13th to complete the pattern. Carter is shocked by this revelation, but Harker adds that she has also decoded Longlegs' notes from over the years. It turns out that in nearly all these letters, he mentioned how much he enjoyed killing the Camera family 20 years ago. Years ago, a man brutally murdered his wife on their family farm, also killing a visiting priest before taking his own life. Fortunately, their daughter, Carrie and Camera, survived the massacre because she was away at school and is now the sole survivor of these serial killings. Traumatized by the events, she has been admitted to a psychiatric hospital. That evening, the detectives decide to investigate the Camera family farm in hopes of uncovering new clues. Following a lead that says X marks the spot, Harker discovers a cross on the floor at the crime scene. Carter removes a wooden plank covering a hidden compartment, revealing a large life-size doll along with an inverted triangle symbol. They take the doll to forensics, where the doctor identifies it as a porcelain doll with human hair on the exterior. The doctor also notes that it was crafted by a highly skilled craftsman and contains a strange, high-energy metal orb inside its head. An ultrasound of the orb reveals whisper-like noises, which activates Harker's psychic abilities. She experiences a vision of several snakes and sees Longlegs crafting the doll, calling it Carrie Ann. In another scene, Longlegs visits a supermarket and purchases a few items. He then approaches a teenage clerk, behaving oddly and making strange noises. When the girl asks what he wants, he instead inquiries about her birth date. Disturbed, she calls out to her father, saying the creepy guy has returned. After leaving the store, Longlegs throws a fit, screaming and mocking the girl. In the next scene, Harker and Carter visit the Psychiatric Institute to meet Carrie and Camera, the sole survivor of the previous crime. The caretaker informs them that no one had visited Carrie in the past 20 years, but someone came for the first time just yesterday. Carrie, who had been in a catatonic state with no interaction with others, miraculously recovered after the visit. The detectives ask if the caretaker saw the visitor, but he reveals he wasn't on site. They check the log from the previous day and are shocked to find that the visitor was registered as Lee Harker. Afterward, Harker visits Carrie Ann's room alone. To her surprise, Carrie immediately recognizes her and says she either saw Harker at the farmhouse or someone who looked a lot like her. When asked about her childhood, Carrie explains that while her mother was disturbed and hated her, her father was a good man, which is why he killed her mother. Carrie also says she'll never forget the visitor from yesterday, who asked her to do something important for a man who lives downstairs. She describes hearing voices coming from inside a doll, instructing her on what to do. Carrie reveals her unwavering loyalty to Longlegs, stating she would do anything for him, including committing suicide or even killing Harker. Disturbed by this, Harker asks about a childhood doll that resembled her, but Carrie Ann doesn't remember it. The next day, Harker suggests to Carter that Longlegs may have implanted something in the doll to control the fathers, driving them insane and compelling them to kill their families. However, Carter is skeptical and finds it suspicious that all the clues are surfacing only after Harker joined the investigation. He also discovers that Ruth, Harker's mother, had once filed a police report about a trespasser, approaching Harker on January 13, 1974, just a day before Harker's 9th birthday. When Carter questions Harker about the incident, she claims to have no memory of it. Carter then encourages Harker to talk to her mother to see if she knows anything. Following this, Harker drives to visit her mother, who has been longing to see her. During their conversation, Ruth laughs when Harker mentions she hasn't been praying much, remarking that prayers don't help them. Later, in the kitchen, Harker notices that her mother has saved her childhood nails, teeth, and hair. Suddenly, she begins to experience the same vision of snakes and recalls the events leading up to her 9th birthday. Someone had broken into their home at that time, causing Ruth to panic. Confused, Harker confronts her mother, asking if she remembers anything unusual about her 9th birthday. Ruth, however, says she doesn't recall much. She also cryptically adds,
"You're not a child because you were allowed to grow up." Allowed? This is a cruel word.
and directs her to some of her old belongings, where Harker finds a Polaroid photo of a pale-faced man. This reveals that Longlegs had visited Harker on her 9th birthday. He had approached her when she took his picture, and although Ruth chased him off their property, he warned that he would return until he got what he wanted. Harker submits the photo to Carter, believing it to be of Longlegs. This leads the FBI team to track down and arrest him in broad daylight as he waits for a bus. During interrogation, the man identifies himself as Dale Ferdinand Cobble. When asked how he knows Harker, he cryptically replies that she's a friend of a friend and expresses a strong desire to see her. He then bizarrely starts singing Happy Birthday to Harker, noting that her birthday is coming soon. Later, Browning, Carter, and Harker review the evidence against Longlegs, including how his handwriting matches the letters. While they confirm he is a devil worshipper, they acknowledge that this isn't a crime in the United States. Harker, however, is convinced he didn't act alone and suspects he had an accomplice, relating it to a book titled as Book of Revelation. She theorizes that the victims' families must have received the doll from someone they knew and trusted. Although Harker expresses a strong desire to question him, the detectives are hesitant, especially given his apparent personal connection to her. With the inverted triangle still missing one date and today being January 13th, Harker suspects that Longlegs' accomplice will strike within the next 24 hours, targeting another family. Reluctantly, they agree to let her question him. In the interrogation room, Longlegs greets Harker with excitement, calling her the almost birthday girl.
Oh, there she is. The almost birthday girl.
To her surprise, he remembers the day she decided to join law enforcement when she was 20. He recalls that all of them laugh out of joy and cryptically adds, "Not she." When Harker presses him about who she is, Longlegs mockingly imitates a nun visiting the victims' families, congratulating them and asking them to collect their gift. He claims to serve the man downstairs, referring to Satan. After wishing her a happy birthday and suggesting she ask her mother about possible accomplices, Longlegs gruesomely smashes his head against the table repeatedly, killing himself. Outside the interrogation room, Harker's boss angrily questions how Longlegs knew who she was. He accuses her of complicating the case, saying they could have arrested him and closed it, but now everything has become more difficult. He also informs Harker that Carrie Ann has committed suicide by jumping off the psychiatric clinic building, and believes that Longlegs must have instructed her to do it, just as he had influenced the other victims. Harker then realizes that she was the little girl from the prologue who first encountered Longlegs at her house. Desperate to confront her mother, believing she might know the identity of Longlegs' accomplice, Harker drives to her mother's house, accompanied by Agent Browning. She asks Browning to stay in the car while she goes inside, to which Agent Browning agrees. Once inside the house, Harker looks around but finds no one. From her bedroom window, she suddenly sees her mother, dressed as a nun, shoots Browning to death with a shotgun. Horrified, Harker rushes outside to find her mother with a gun in hand, who is now pointing the gun at a doll resembling a young Harker. Confused, Harker demands to know why her mother did this. Ruth, mumbling incoherently, says that now that they've caught Longlegs, he is free. Harker insists that Longlegs is dead and that it's all over. Ruth then shoots the doll's head off, telling Harker that she is now free as well. This causes a puff of black smoke emerging from Harker's head, causing her to faint, and a black smoke also emerges from the doll's metal orb. In a flashback montage to 1974, it is revealed that Harker's mother was Longlegs' accomplice all along. When Longlegs came to kill Harker's family, her father wasn't home to carry out the murders. She made a pact with Longlegs to spare Harker's life when she was young. Longlegs lived in the family's basement during her childhood, crafting the satanic dolls, earning him the title, the Man Downstairs. Ruth, disguised as a nun, would deliver these cursed dolls to families, claiming they were gifts from the church that would later be murdered. It turns out that the dolls were infused with satanic whisperings, which brainwashed the fathers, driving him to murder their families. Harker's own doll, still intact and unused, gave her psychic powers and guided her in life. In the present, Harker awakens in the basement where Longlegs once lurked, roused by the sound of a ringing phone. Groggy, she stumbles upstairs to answer it. Ruth is nowhere to be found, but a deep voice on the other end tells her,
"You're late for Miss Ruby's birthday party."
Harker steals Longlegs' car from her mother's garage and races to prevent the final murder Longlegs had planned, to complete the ritual. Upon arriving at Carter's house, Carter and Ann greet her warmly, and everything seems normal at first. But as she steps inside, she finds her mother already at Carter's home, dressed as a nun. She realizes that the family might already be possessed, with Ruth having delivered the doll. A frightened Harker warns Carter that the woman is her mother and an accomplice of Longlegs. However, Carter, already possessed, becomes enraged with Harker. Meanwhile, Anna suggests bringing out the cake, and she and Carter head to the kitchen. Witnessing this, Harker asks her mother why she is doing this. Ruth reveals that if she doesn't, they will both die and burn in hell. At that moment, they hear Carter stabbing his wife to death in the kitchen. Ruth further claims that she is doing all this for Harker, just as she has always done, and allowing little Harker to grow up.
Hail Satan.
Possessed Carter, after murdering his wife in the kitchen, approaches to kill his daughter as well. Harker shoots and kills Carter to protect his daughter. Her mother still intends to kill Carter's daughter to complete the ritual and attacks with a dagger. So, Harker is forced to shoot her own mother to break the trance and stop the killings. She tries to destroy the doll, but her gun does not discharge. She tells Ruby that they need to leave, but remains frozen and emotionless, staring at the doll. The movie ends with a shot of Longlegs in the interrogation room.
Hail Satan.